and it just snowballed to the point where I think he's going to take the hit and be out of a job come the end of the season. And I don't like saying that because Jeff Cable's one of my favorite coaches.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Odd Coaches Podcast, the global authority on coaching leadership, where coaching wisdom meets real talk. I am your host, Dr. Keith Adams, and on today's Throwdown Thursday edition, in segment one, we're going to talk about, on the men's side, high major hot seats. And in this day and age, how do you coach? What are we doing? In segment two, we're going to talk about the culture shift to Tennessee. And there's just a lot of people talking about the program. We're also going to add some information about Pittsburgh women's team and some follow-up there. And in segment three, the Hail Mary executive order, can Washington save college sports? I think we know the answer to that. Joining us today, basketball correspondent Danny Thompson and our favorite administrator, and boy, do we need him today, Robert Abney. Gentlemen, Selection Sunday is a week from today. We tape on Sundays, as our fans know, and the 68 team brackets will be out. So I don't know who's going to be able to stay up late. That's an inside joke for our show. So let's give you the schedule just so you guys know it. Selection Sunday is March 15th. The first four is March 17th and March 18th. That's a pretty quick turnaround. The first round games where everybody doesn't go to work or get any work done is Thursday, March 19th and Friday, March 20th. The second round is March 21st and March 22nd. The Sweet 16, March 26th and March 27th. And the Elite Eight, hopefully there's some in-person CKA OCP events, March 28th and March 29th. And then the Final Four, which I will be attending in Indianapolis, Indiana, is Saturday, April 4th at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Thursday night, we'll be at St. Elmo's splitting a steak. And the NCAA championship is Monday, April 6th at Lucas Oil Stadium. It's really not fun watching a basketball game in a football stadium, but got to make some money somehow. Gentlemen, net rankings. Hello, Coach Franchise. Duke is 1, Michigan's 2, Arizona's 3, Florida is 4, Illinois is 5, Gonzaga is 6 right now, and in mid-majors, St. Mary's is 21. St. Louis is 23, but they won't be there long. They lost to George Mason. Utah State is 28, Santa Clara is 41, and VCU has snuck in at 45. But the story of the week is not a fun story, but a story we have to cover, and it is coaches on the hot seat. It is the best of times, it's the worst of times. Some guys are going to leave, and some guys are going to get an opportunity. So in terms of coaching, I'm going to go to you, Danny. Who do you think is on the hottest seat and may not have a gig by this time next week?
Much to my dismay, Jeff Cable. He has had Pittsburgh competitive in the ACC for years, knocking on the door of the NCAA tournament, getting in last year, which was a bright spot. I'm thinking they're going to be coming in the ACC for years to come, and then they just took a complete nosedive going into the season. He was one of those coaches. I'm like, he's going to do fine at Pitt. He's going to do a job that I think he's going to be able to pick up what Jamie Dixon had when he was there. It's just they run into a lot of things. It was just not enough results on the floor. I caught a couple games. They had a lot of miscommunication issues, a lot of rough time scoring the basketball, trying to get stops on defense, and it just didn't. They didn't gravitate on what they did last year going into this season. I think loss of players had an effect. Not a lot of experience had an effect. And it just snowballed to the point where I think he's going to take the hit and be out of a job come the end of the season. And I don't like saying that because Jeff Cable's one of my favorite coaches. Played against him when he was coaching down in Oklahoma, but he was coaching Oklahoma. Did play against him twice when I was in college. So it was wild to see him go from being one of those top coaches, and then it just snows God this season.
All right, Robert, you watch as much Big 12 and middle of the country basketball. Is there anybody in particular you're like, I don't think they're going to make it through the end of the week?
Um, I would be shocked if Thad Matta sticks around at Butler. I think that that hasn't worked. He's one of their guys, but it just hasn't worked. I think the Penny Hardaway era at Memphis is probably over unless they manage to make a run, which they have not shown they're capable of. And he's their guy. I mean, Penny Hardaway is a Memphis guy, but they're just really struggling. Here's what I think is interesting. You have two coaches, one at LSU and one at Rutgers. Okay. Both of whom have significant buyouts on their contracts. And in one school, LSU, you have a school that's paying a bunch of football coaches that they've already fired to the tune of, I don't know, $100 million, maybe more. That's a lot of money. And it's going to cost you at least, $25 million to fire the coach and hire a new staff? Can you swallow that given how much you spend on football? Then at Rutgers, I can't remember the number, but wasn't it something like $787 million or some ridiculous number that the athletic department is in debt? Can you, in good conscience, incur another $20 million in debt just so you can get another coach so that you can finish 9th in the Big Ten instead of 17th? Because let's be honest, that's they're not going to do significantly better than that. They may get a one-off somewhere where maybe they're in the top 3 in the Big Ten, but for the most part, middle of the pack is best they can reasonably expect. So I wonder what schools like that are going to do. What are LSU and Rutgers going to do given the financial constraints we know they have? And yes, LSU has money. Rutgers doesn't have any money. LSU has money. But still, do you want to spend that much money when you already owe coaches a ton of money to begin with?
Yeah. So for me, the CK Save Project is currently conducting research. And one of the research studies and one of the reasons why we're going to be in Indianapolis is on coaching in today's climate. Coaching is already hard. And now you're in a situation where you didn't sign up for a lot of the things you have to do. So organizations have to make decisions. For example, at Syracuse, they have a Syracuse alum. They kept it in the family and it hasn't worked. Butler has a Butler guy with the Butler way and it hasn't worked. You mentioned Memphis and Penny. Penny Hardaway is, outside of Keith Lee, the greatest player in the history of the organization, and it hasn't worked. And then on the flip side, you have a situation like at St. Bonaventure, where you brought in Adrian Wojnarowski to run your organization. The coach retires, air quote, and they're looking to bring in somebody with a smaller salary, maybe somebody like David Vanderpool from the Wizards, who's already made NBA money, who maybe can take a little less, and then you can put a little more into the program. Or you have a situation like LSU where they just may fire the coach and wait for it, bring back Will Wade with that strong ass offer. And that's how we got in trouble in the first place. So I don't know what you do if you're Pittsburgh, because you're still Pittsburgh, and will you spend like everyone else? I'm at a loss. So Robert, I'm coming back to you with all of these things in mind. How do you build and higher in 2026, not just for college basketball, but any sport in college athletics?
It because of the money involved, it is so hard. And you hear, I read a lot of stuff and I hear a lot of stuff where administrators are like, I can't miss on this hire. I have to get this hire right. I can't miss on this hire. And there's no way of knowing that. I mean, you can do your due diligence. You can see what you can see what coaches have done elsewhere.
And don't forget the search firms, because they're making money.
You can interview people and, make phone calls to people on their resume and people who aren't on their resume. And you can do all of that. And it still might not work.
Mm-hmm.
And it still might not work. And you really have to think, I mean, to me, you really have to think about, okay, what are we looking for? What kind of values and this might be a bit of a, pipe dream in today's NIL age, but we kind of want somebody who represents the values of our institution, right? We kind of want somebody who's not going to make us look bad. We kind of want somebody who's going to represent us well. I think, and it's my opinion that, if you have a successful program and you have a coach who gets pulled for another reason, that you should look inside first to see if you have somebody, within your program who deserves a chance, that you're better off doing that because they've already been there. They understand what you're doing. They understand the constraints of the university. They understand how things they understand how things are done at that particular university. I get that a lot of schools they feel like they have to make a splash. But again, you've got to find somebody who fits. And like Bobby Hurley's going to be out at Arizona State. And the first person that they should talk to is Randy Bennett, who's at St. Mary's, and he's been at St. Mary's forever. Is Randy Bennett going to leave St. Mary's? If I were him, I'm like, you know what? I'm good. I've got things going here. I know what I'm doing. Gonzaga's leaving. I'm going to run the West Coast. I'm good. But that's me. So I feel like if I'm a head coach at a mid-major, if I'm the guy at St. Louis, and we keep saying it all the time, he's gone. If I'm him, I'm like, you know what? This is a pretty good gig. And I'm the big dog here. I'm just going to hang out because I can win 25, 28, 30 games and be good. And I don't have to go anywhere. But again, that's just me. I don't know. I gave you a lot. I want to hear what Danny has to say about all this.
Yeah, Danny, what are you thinking, man? I'm couching this. We're researching as an organization. And if you're interested in participating in that research, go to ckasaveproject.org, click the Contact Us button. If you're a college coach on any level, Division I, II, III, JUCO, and we'll send you the survey. But Danny, that's a lot to chew on. And you're a player, and you're getting paid probably as much as your assistant, if not more. What are you thinking about all of this?
As a player, I'm sitting back, I'm wondering, I'm like, what am I going to do with all these changes that are going on? Because it's so much to factor in my decision of whether or not am I going to stay and be a part of this new coaching staff's vision for how they want the program to go? Do I leave and get another opportunity to try hone my skills somewhere else. Because it's like when I'll go from my own experience. When Coach Brown, Milan Brown, who's an assistant up at Pitt, when he was leaving to go to Holy Cross, I weighed my options about whether or not do I want to stay or do I want to transfer. And thankfully, I had my parents, a couple people I knew who were still, in my ear as far as good basketball conversation in my ear. I just wanted to talk to anybody, right? And they gave me the right information necessary to make that decision of whether or not to stay or to transfer. And I think as a player, you have to, this is where your basketball circle needs to be pivotal in your thought process when you're going through a transition like this, because many players just go hum-ho, especially nowadays with players getting paid with this NIL stuff, and that'll be a whole nother topic for later on in the episode. You have to figure out now, where am I going to get the most money as far as NIL deals go? So now you have to look at that aspect along with the aspect of what team is going to give me the best success as a team and as an individual. So that's a lot to process in a very short amount of time for especially players with like 18 to 21 years old who still are wet behind the ears with Similac at this point. So that's something that they got to figure out.
Yeah, and with that, and we'll talk about this a little more in segment 3, but at the CK Safe Project, we tell players, we tell anybody who can hear us, when your future is on the line, experience matters, and we do have programming designed to assist in the decision-making process. I do remember being one of those people that Danny reached out to, and I said to him, as I would say to anybody, as William Shakespeare said, to thy own self be true. What is best for Danny? And what I told Danny at that time, and he can speak to it before we wrap up, is you're too close to a degree to make a decision that's not going to get you that degree. And once you get the degree, you can make any decision you want, but you didn't work this hard to not get that degree. So that was what I said. And I hope it helped. And Danny can speak to that piece. But again, not all money is good money. And why are we doing all of this? We hope to do all of this to get a degree to help us move forward in our lives. And if professional opportunities come, well, that's good too. But I live in fantasy land with Robert.
But get that piece of paper.
I'm still in fantasy land with Robert.
Please, look, coming from a guy who had an extra year, so I actually left with a dual major instead of just a single major. So that piece is very important too, because I think that's where a lot of players get lost in the student part of being a student athlete. They're focused on the athlete portion and forget you are very close to getting something that is pretty valuable down the line for your professional, outlook. Because let's be real, I had the great fortune of playing minor league professional basketball. It could have led to more if, injuries weren't a factor. But the one thing I had that never went away, that led me to get to where I am now, is that degree that I got at the end of the day. Because there are some of us who got that degree and they're still trying to live as an athlete and they're not successful at it. So now they're having to pivot, but they were never prepared for that life after basketball was over.
Yeah. So with that, in segment 2, we're going to talk about Tennessee and senior night. And it didn't go very well for some. We'll talk about that on the other side. We'll be right back on the Odd Coaches Podcast.
Today's student athletes face pro-level challenges without pro-level support. The CKA SAVE project is here to change that. For 16 plus years, Dr. Keith Adams and his team have provided comprehensive academic and athletic support from middle school through post-graduation transitions. NIL guidance, transfer portal navigation, academic coaching, career planning, they've got it covered. The CKA SAVE project. When your future is on the line, experience matters. Learn more at www.ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Odd Coaches Podcast. And in segment 2, okay, we've got some problems in Tennessee. All right. But before we get there, we want to talk about the women's tournament. And starting next week, we're going to really dig in and have a lot of information in terms of the women's tournament. So Selection Sunday is March 15th, ESPN. First four, Wednesday, March 18th, Thursday, March 19th. And then you got the first round, March 20th, March 21st. Second round, March 22nd, March 23rd. Sweet 16, March 27th, March 28th. Hopefully on March 28th, we have some in-person CKA OCP events somewhere. The Elite Eight is March 29th and March 30th. And then the Final Four is April 3rd in Phoenix, Arizona. And the NCAA Championship game is Sunday, April 5th. Also in Phoenix, you've got the women's net rankings. And yes, you can recite them like memory, like the ABCs, UConn, UCLA, South Carolina, Texas, and LSU. Mid-majors. Richmond, they lost, if I'm not mistaken, because the conference tournaments for women are already taking place. You got Princeton and the Ivies. You got Princeton at 38, South Dakota State at 42, North Dakota State at 46, and James Madison at 48. But the story of the week comes from Tennessee. So Kaya Wynn is a 5-year player at the Lady Vols. And one, thank you for staying, because there was a report this past week on the men's side that only like just above 20 players across the country has lasted 4 years at the same school. She missed the 2024-2025 season due to an Achilles injury and saw limited action this year. So she cited her senior day experience as the breaking point. Despite never starting a game in her career, she hoped for a symbolic start, and the coach didn't start her and also gave her kind of mop-up time at the end, which she felt was just a little bit disrespectful. Danny, I'm going to go to you because I am fond of saying that it rarely ends well. It rarely ends with a senior night and you know, a jersey that's framed and family and flowers and all of that. When you read about this from the player standpoint, what did you think?
From a player standpoint, I mean, well, first and first, asking me don't help, because I'm sitting there like, I'm not going to sit back and think I'm deserving of a starting spot just because it's senior night. Like, if I didn't make the starting lineup, then there's a reason I didn't make the starting lineup. And I'm not going to, get emotional because it's my last home game and I didn't start. Did I play? Oh, that's great. Now, there's another aspect to that playing part, which is where I would probably draw the line at. And it's knowing the game is over, you got 15 seconds left, and Coach decides to check her in. I'm not all for that. I mean, again, I'm also of the mindset you get what you earn. And if you didn't earn the playing time initially, then there's no point in trying to worry about it now. But I mean, with my last home game, I would want to play. It's the last hurrah, as they say. So it's a mixed bag when you look at it. I'm not gonna like the first part. I'm not gonna worry about it. If I don't start, I don't start. It's not a big deal. Would I want to play? Of course I would. This is coming from a guy who started his senior game, and after a certain point in the second half, I didn't see the rest of the floor. So it was weird going through that. Granted, we wound up losing the game, and I was a little pissed off about it. But I don't know. It's kind of it's flip your coin. Which one are you going to be more mad at? You can be more mad at because I didn't start, or you can be more mad because I didn't play. flip a coin and figure it out.
All right, Robert, we're going to bring the fans to the behind the scenes of our relationship because two things can be true at the same time. Two things can be true. You have the pomp and pageantry of senior night, and you've been an administrator. You've seen that. And you also have trying to win a game. And then once the game is over, I can give some GT, to it. But you also have the fact that there's been some issues at Tennessee throughout the year, and the national media has talked about our program. You're the administrator. You're off to the side at senior night, and administrators are usually to the sides clapping. But on Monday morning, you hear that this player has left, and here's the reason why they left. It's on your desk, sir. How's Robert Abney dealing with this?
So I've said before here, my niece played Division I basketball at Sacramento State. The guy who recruited her got fired at the end of her, I can't remember which season it was because of COVID, and she had a red shirt and all that stuff. So eligibility wise, I don't know where she was, but it was the end of her third year. Okay. And she was on pace to graduate in 4 years. And that was her intention. And they hired a guy named Dan Campbell, who is now the coach at TCU. And my brother, I mean, I've never met him. My brother loves him. Good dude. They still text. He still texts my niece. They have a really good relationship. And after Dan Campbell got to Sacramento State, my niece, she had been having some shoulder issues. She injured it again. She tore her labrum. She had surgery, and the doctors basically said, "You're done," because same thing's going to happen, and we can't keep fixing it like this. So he kept my niece around as basically a student assistant. And she did kind of, she helped out in practice. She sat on the bench. She traveled. She helped the director of basketball operations do stuff. He made her feel like she was a part of the program. And on senior night at Sacramento State, she put on her uniform and she got to start. And she, they tipped it off, and she immediately went and fouled so they could sub her out of the game, so they could put somebody in who had two functioning arms. And, she got hugs, handshakes, high fives, all of that. And he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to do any of that for a kid that he didn't recruit, who was not going to be of any use to him. He didn't have to do that. Without getting into what Coach Caldwell should have done, she could have done that. She could have built some goodwill towards her program with the national media. She could have built some goodwill towards the coaching staff from the players by doing that with the seniors in the program, giving them an opportunity to be on the floor for at least a couple minutes, give them an opportunity to run up and down a few times, sub them out, they get a standing ovation, and whatever happens after that is whatever happens. Clearly she's not thinking about that right now. Clearly nobody had that conversation with her. At this point, I'm not sure that having that conversation is going to be helpful, because, given where they are, and given, they're going to be probably an 8 seed in the NCAA tournament and probably will not win a game, given the disarray that they're in. And, Tennessee has some decisions to make, because they've already tried we hired our family and that didn't work. So now they brought her in, and maybe it's just hey, maybe Tennessee isn't what Tennessee used to be. So there's a whole lot going on there, and they've got a whole lot of thinking to do, because they have to figure out what they want to be, and they have to figure out if they're, it's going to be interesting to see, first of all, if she's back. Second of all, what kind of team she has next year if she is back.
Yeah. For me, with the senior night thing, and I want to acknowledge seniors. I always was a big deal at whether I was at Paint Branch or Wooten or Springbrook or Hood or whatever. We're going to acknowledge them. But Tennessee situation's different, and we don't advocate for anybody's firing. But in terms of a leadership standpoint, she can't come back, because if I'm recruiting against her, I'm going to use every conceivable angle I can to say, here's the clip of how your coach treats you after whatever. So they have to find a nice, polite way to do it. They don't have to, but you get the idea. But yeah, this has not gone well. You've got alumni talking on both sides in terms of she's not doing a good job, or I'm cool with her not playing me as a senior. The student athlete in particular has a right to feel whatever way she wants to feel. There's no wrong with that, but it's just bad, and we've got to hit the reset button because Tennessee's too good to be this toxic right now. Speaking of toxic, we do have a wrap up to the Pitt women's basketball season. So Pitt's athletic director, by the way, the basketball thing is not going very well at Pitt on the men's or the women's side. No. Hired Tori Verdi last week following a dismal 8-23 season, a 1-17 record in the ACC, ends a 3-year tenure with a 29-66 record. The firing follows a February 2026 federal investigation. And fans, we don't like the feds doing anything with us. That's not good. Filed by 6 former players, and the allegations included Title IX violations, psychological abuse, and Verdi reportedly telling the team, every night I lie in bed wanting to kill myself because of you. Please don't ever say that to anyone. So I'm going to go to you first, Robert. You are the Pittsburgh AD. You've got a men's coach that's underperforming. You've got a women's coach that's going to get you in the court. What are you doing? Are you using a search firm, or are you asking your buddies for recommendations? What are you thinking about?
Well, first of all, I didn't hire either of these guys. So they're we will thank them both for their services and send them on their way. We better prepare for settlements with those players, because we did not address concerns with the women's coach soon enough. Man, since you're trying to hire 2 at once, I think you probably want to at least start with the search firm. Find me some candidates. Here's what we're looking for. Here's the university profile, all of that. And then narrow it down a little bit, and then start getting into your circle and talk to people and see where you want to go from there. But seems to me like the search firm is probably the best way to start. I guess the other question is, excuse me. I guess the other question is, how much money do you have to spend?
Because nothing's free.
Right.
No. Nobody's hooking you up. There are no free fries in the bag when you're at this level, and you don't have a lot of revenue to begin with. And football hadn't helped. So This is a lot. So Danny, close us out. Your player in this era, in this time, what is Danny Thompson looking for in a head coach? Because you've heard Tennessee's situation, and I don't know what kind of motivational tactics this guy was doing at Pittsburgh, but don't do that. What are you thinking, Danny?
One, I'll be looking for can I trust being around you first things first. Because the way that coach was dealing with their players and some of the things he was saying, it was outrageous. I was like, my gosh. So that's the first thing I'm looking for. Second thing is, what's your culture like? What's your culture around um being the student part of being a student athlete? What's your culture around how you get us prepared for games? How are you coaching or teaching us your strategy to win basketball games? Third, how am I with the rest of your coaching staff? Because everybody can be great with the head coach, but it's that staff around the head coach that's real valuable to the success of the team, along with what the team does on the floor. So that's another thing to think about. And then, of course, what's my camaraderie like with the players on the team? How are we all getting along with each other? How am I able to talk to them? How am I able to communicate with them on the floor and off the floor? So those are the components I look for. When it was time to looking for a university to go play the next level, and I think that's where Pitt is going to have some problems with now, because now you have to completely start over. This is the third coach in 4 years. So it's like you're resetting the culture almost every single year. And it doesn't help at this point. At least on the men's side, Jeff was there for 8, 9 seasons. So he knew what he expected out of his guys on the floor. On the women's side, y'all know better than what I'm going to the NFL route. Y'all know better than what the Bears were doing to Caleb Williams. Y'all were getting him a coach almost every year. And then now you're expecting to do that at the college level, and now you have to bring in fresh faces every single year. So you could be getting one person, and that person finds out, oh, this person's not there anymore. All right, I'm gone. I'll see y'all later. I'll go to another school. So you have to factor in all of this as a player. It's a lot to think about.
Yeah. All right. So fans, in segment 3, Mr. Smith didn't go to Washington, but a whole lot of other people did. We're going to talk about the executive order that may or may not come this week. We'll be right back on the Odd Coaches Podcast. Hi, everyone. Dr. Keith Adams here. And for over 30 years, I've dedicated my life to helping student athletes succeed, not just on the fields and the courts, but in the classroom and beyond. And that's why I founded the CKA Save Project. The CKA Save Project understands that finding the balance between academics and athletics is crucial for long-term success. That's why the CKA Save Project offers a range of programs, including personalized consulting, mentorship, and coming in 2027, our innovative Gap Year Basketball Academy, designed to assist both young men and women reach their full potential both on and off the court. I'm incredibly excited to announce that the CKA Save Project is now partnering with the Cascade Sports Network. This partnership will allow us the opportunity to amplify our message and reach even more student athletes through the Odd Coaches Podcast and other exciting initiatives. Join the CKA Save Project and the Cascade Sports Network as we empower the next generation of student athletes. Visit CKA on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org to learn more. Let's work together to find the balance and help unlock your potential. Welcome back to the Odd Coaches Podcast in segment 3, the $1 billion Hail Mary, federal intervention in the future of student athletes. So a lot of heavy hitters came to a high-stakes roundtable featuring President Trump, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the Power 4 commissioners, and the primary goal is the SCORE Act, which aims to codify, quote, non-employment status for student athletes and establish a national NIL regulatory structure. So President Trump has pledged a, quote, all-encompassing executive order to stabilize the industry despite acknowledging certain legal challenges. There's a bipartisan alternative where Senators Maria Cantwell and Eric Schmidt has introduced the College Sports Competitiveness Act. This act would amend the 1961 Sports Broadcasting Act to allow colleges to pool media rights, a move currently restricted by antitrust laws. You also have the proponents of the bill saying college football generates 3.7 billion viewing hours, which is nearly double the NBA, and it generates only $3 billion in media revenue. You also have the U.S. Olympic Committee talking about revenue sharing with football and basketball players is cannibalizing the Olympic pipeline. Over 40 Olympic programs in Division I have been cut since 2020. And you have coaches like Urban Meyer calling for the total elimination of donor-funded collectives, calling the current NIL landscape pay-for-play cheating. That was a lot. And there's a lot of people at these meetings. And before I send it to my panel, the CKSA project, as you know, is conducting organizational research because no student athletes were at the table. And the organizational research we're doing with student athletes centers around student athlete motivation in the area of NIL and the transfer portal and the relationship between academic and athletic motivation, which is an extension of my doctoral work. And we're also interviewing student athletes on their thoughts on collective bargaining. So if you are a current student athlete listening, Division 1, 2, 3, JUCO, what have you, please go to our website, cksaproject.org, click the Contact Us button, and let us know you'd be interested because we're going to collect data until early June, and then we're going to go through that process. I will also be at the Men's Final Four in Indianapolis. I'll be at the SAC Symposium, sponsored by the Drake Group Educational Fund in April, and I'll be at the Black Student Athlete Summit in May to hear from student athletes because a lot of people are talking for you, and we need to hear your voice and share your thoughts. So as I say that, Robert, you are our administrator and you're the person I usually go to first with this. A lot happened last week, a lot of feedback from both sides. What's your take on this roundtable discussion?
Well, I'd like to announce that I have already signed an order that will solve all of these problems, right? And obviously that is pointless. So is what Mr. Trump is doing. Because first of all, any executive order that he comes up with is going to be immediately tied up in court by people who have a bunch of money at stake, not the least of which is Cody Campbell, who was at the meeting, and it runs the Texas Tech NIL in, Texas Tech trying to challenge University of Texas and Texas A&M for having more money than God. You also have, let's be honest, you have 50 people in a room for 45 minutes trying to solve this problem that has sprouted over how many years?
We're rolling on 4 and 5 right now.
Exactly. Right. 50 people going to solve that problem in 45 minutes. You know, and I know, and everybody who's listening to this knows that ain't happening. It's just not happening. I without getting political, Mr. Trump and Mr. Rubio and all these other knuckleheads have other stuff that they need to be doing right now. They have other areas that require their attention that are a bit more important to the nation than trying to solve this problem. This is nonsense. You're trying to, this is nonsense, and you didn't have any student athletes in the room with you trying to solve the problem. What are we doing?
All right, Danny, my tag team partner, Coach Mike Franchise Francis, often says to me, it ain't funny when the rabbit has the gut. Right now, student athletes are in a position that they have financial say, and it's really hard to say that otherwise. But the reality piece is Olympic sports are getting cut, and flag football is coming in, and that is a little cheaper than women's gymnastics. And Iowa State just did. They just eliminated their women's gymnastics program, and let's just say gymnastics means a lot to the CKA Save Project. Shout out to Sydney Seabrooks, UNC Chapel Hill, and also CKA Virtual Intern. So you have a lot of things going on. You also have people, and we're not angry at them. We have people like Nick Saban who got out because you can't hoard the talent anymore. He'll tell you otherwise. That's fine. And Urban Meyer, please do not speak for me on any issue right now. You've got a lot going on, and not a lot of things were spoken about in terms of meeting measurable progress to graduation. So as a former student athlete, you heard about the round table. You'll be able to participate on a personal level through CKA at the SAC Symposium, where Cody Campbell will do a fireside chat to talk about a lot of these issues. What are you thinking about as this came across your desk?
When I first heard this was coming, and it was a couple weeks ago when the first announcement came out, I wondered who would be in the room to speak for the student athletes of today. And there was no one. No one was in that room to speak for what student athletes want in this situation. Because we have heard stories of student athletes when it comes to this NIL stuff, they're not properly taught or trained to deal with these type of negotiations. Yet the one quarterback from UNLV, he thought he was going to do the Sinatra agreement, shake hands, we're going to get this thing and get it done. You got schools trying to figure out these collectives of how we're going to get players to come in. And of course, Nick Saban's going to speak on it because, like you said, he can't go out and get the best 4-star, 5-star guys anymore because they're now realizing I can go somewhere else and they can give me more of a financial backing somewhere else than you can here. Urban Meyer, go back to the hole that you came out of. Why on earth are you trying to speak for the student athlete of today when you have not coached in college athletics in years and you're still got the egg on your face from the mess you went through in the NFL? So no. And then like Robert said, I don't want to get too political. They have way too much going on right now to be thinking about this. This should not have rolled across any political person's desk because they don't know what they're going to be talking about as far as what the student athlete is looking for and what colleges need to do. This should have been done from day one when all of this stuff got started. The minute the O'Bannon case was settled and done with, y'all should have got in a room and figured this out. Because now you're trying to go get the big gun, and the big gun is not going to know what the hell he's talking about because he's going to put the wrong people in the room to have this conversation. Like, what are we getting Tiger Woods for? What are you bringing in Tim Tebow, who has not quarterbacked in college football since 2009? What are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah. So all of this is hard. This is not easy. And both sides of the aisle have asked for information. And being a part of the Drake group, I've had the pleasure and the privilege of sitting in rooms with really smart people trying to figure out how to best do this. And I have met with groups like athletes.org who want employment status. I have met with other people who have said, let's ask the student athletes what they need and then provide it without providing employment status. And there's good points and bad points on both sides. At the CKA Safe Project, it's important for us to get information directly from the student athletes. So again, we are doing research on student athletes, as we mentioned. We are doing research on coaches, as mentioned, and we want to share that research. And we're going to do this until early June. So if you are a student athlete or a coach and you're interested in sharing your story and taking our surveys, please visit us on the web at www.cksafeproject.org. Click the Contact Now tab, and we'll send you the surveys. And we thank you in advance for that. But we have a melancholy, to use Tony Kornheiser from PTI. Happy trails today. Lou Holtz passed away this past week, and our Notre Dame correspondent, Jake Schaller, who is also a Notre Dame graduate and a former sports writer extraordinaire, wanted to be here but could not. So as he does during football season, he sent me a note, and I hope I do Jake justice with this. So Lou Holtz famously said, for those who know Notre Dame, no explanation is necessary. For those who do not, no explanation will suffice. The same could be said about Lou Holtz himself. You see, Lou Holtz was 5'6", 140 pounds, and larger than life. He was tough, he was funny, and he was one hell of a football coach. At Notre Dame, he had almost godlike status. Even when he was still coaching, it was befitting, considering he had resurrected Notre Dame after the Jerry Fausch years, and Robert and I can remember the Jerry Fausch years. It seemed as modern college football had left Notre Dame in the past. It would only be the stuff of grainy black and white footage, but Notre Dame, much like Marcus Freeman of today, Lou Holtz was the perfect coach for Notre Dame at the time. He reinstalled a toughness, a desire, and a belief that Notre Dame was different but special, and that it could still win both despite being different because it was different. And when he did in 1985, when Faust last ended with a 56-7 embarrassment at the hands of Miami, by year 3 of his tenure, Lou Holtz had already had Notre Dame playing at a national championship level. He went 12-0 to win the school's first national title in 11 years. But along that time period, he beat USC, he beat Michigan, he beat West Virginia, and of course, he beat Miami 31-30 in the famous Catholics versus convict games. That year, Notre Dame beat teams that finished ranked number 2, number 4, number 5, and number 7. It was an incredible run. Jake went to Notre Dame during Coach Holtz's last 4 years, and he will always remember between the third and fourth quarters, the band playing the 1812 overture with fans chanting Lou and waving their arms in unison. Holtz was everything Notre Dame needed. He was a great tactician. He was a great motivator, but more than anything, he valued toughness, especially up front, and believed in Notre Dame, and that's what made him special. There will never be another coach like Lou Holtz. Rest in peace. So with that, on behalf of our cavalcade of stars and our good friend Jake Schaller, I'm Dr. Keith Adams saying thank you for listening and or watching the Odd Coaches podcast, the global authority on coaching leadership, where coaching wisdom meets real talk. Also seen on the Cascade Sports Network, and we will see you on the sideline. Until next time, take care.
We hope you enjoyed today's show. The Odd Coaches podcast drops new episodes every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Make sure you subscribe to the Odd Coaches podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the Odd Coaches podcast on the X platform at Odd Coaches. Follow Dr. Keith Adams and the CKA Save Project on social media at CKA Save Project. For more information about the CKA Save Project, visit them on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org. See you next time on the Odd Coaches Podcast.